Hello, I'm Cynthia Peters from the Farm Cooking School in beautiful Prince Edward County. Today we're going to be doing an alternative to the traditional turkey dinner. And this particular recipe is going to be a turkey roll with stuffing. Today we're going to use two wonderful products from Paper Chef. They're Culinary Parchment rolls and they're handy cooking bags. Both of these products will save you time in the kitchen, giving you extra time to have with your guests during this holiday season. The very first step in preparing your stuffing is to toast your pine nuts. This gives it a wonderful golden flavor and really enhances the flavor of your stuffing at the end of the day. And we're going to saute and caramelize our onions and apples. And you want to saute these over medium heat so that they can start to caramelize. And you should always put onions in first because they take a little bit longer. And this really gives them an opportunity to get a little more golden and give you the flavor that you need for the foundation of your stuffing. Next, we're going to put in the celery. So we've got one whole apple that I'm dicing here. And these apples are from beautiful Prince Edward County. It's important to use firm apples when you're cooking because then they will keep their shape a little bit better when you're cooking them off. So we'll just slide these into the pan. And we'll let that saute for a little bit while we prepare the mushrooms. You could use any mushrooms that you like for this particular recipe. My favorite is shiitake. I love the nutty flavor of them. You could use cremini mushrooms, which are actually mini portobello mushrooms. Oysters are lovely as well. I find the white button mushrooms a little less appealing because these other ones have much more flavor. And when you're just using a small amount, you want to get as much flavor as possible. So the next step, as I said, we'll put the mushrooms in. You don't need to add any oil. And make sure when you're preparing your mushrooms, just use a damp paper towel to wash off the dirt on the outside of the mushrooms. Because if you actually wash them, they'll soak in the water and then make them soggy when you're cooking them. The final thing is to season this off at the very end. So we've got some fresh sage here. I particularly like using fresh herbs as much as possible. If it's not available to you, you could use dry sage, but just use a little bit less. We have a little salt and pepper as well that we want to put in. I like using kosher salt for cooking. And a little bit of fresh ground pepper. And now you're going to prepare the bread portion of the stuffing. You need to get a medium-sized bowl. And you're just going to cut your bread into small cubes. Again, this is important because you don't want to have large pieces of bread. This will be soaked up with all the wonderful juices coming from your vegetables. So we'll just chop these into nice bite-sized pieces. So we place that in the bowl, like so. And we're just going to let the hot stuffing sit on top of the bread. That will moisten it up. And we want this to cool off anyhow while we prepare our turkey breast. Because it's important when you put stuffing into cold meat that it's not hot because it starts to cook it from its inside immediately. So you really want to try to get this as cool to room temperature as possible. So that will just sit for the time being. And we're going to move over to doing the actual turkey breast. Now, when we have a breast of about 1.75 pounds, you really have an opportunity to get 2 pieces of turkey breast out of it. You would just butterfly it and be able to have one here and then another one on the side to be able to do stuffing for both of them. You need to have a second piece of culinary parchment paper. The important thing is to just fold the lid in first. This gives you a harder edge to cut. Figure out the amount you need and then just gently tear there on an angle. So you place the second piece on top. Again, this saves a lot of cleaning. And get your mallet. You're not looking for the bumpy side. That's to tenderdize meat. What you're just trying to do is pound it. So use the flat edge. You can use a metal or a wooden mallet. And you're going to try to get it about a ½ inch thick. This way it gives you an opportunity to have a prettier roll. And with the meat being a little bit thinner, again, it helps to speed up the cooking process. So when you're down to about a ½ inch, you're going to be looking to having as much of a rectangle as possible, because with the stuffing you're going to roll it and you want to create like a mini jelly roll. So once you've done the pounding, just lift off the top layer of parchment paper. You can discard that. And you're looking to season with a little bit of black pepper and salt. And then you're going to take your toasted pine nuts that you prepared earlier and add that to the stuffing. And what's great about this is now the bread has softened up from the heat of the sautéed vegetables and made it so that it will actually gel more together in your hands when you're doing the stuffing. At the bottom part of your roll, you're going to be putting the stuffing. Just squeeze it together with your hands. You want to leave enough room on either side. We're going to just be able to do that while we're rolling up so that it doesn't come out. But what's wonderful about this is the parchment paper will help keep it its shape once it's roasting. So now you start from the bottom up and gently roll the turkey breast like this. Tuck in the sides as you go along, and you've got the side here on here. And you're coming to do and try to get all the stuffing inside. And then you have this beautiful roll. If you have a lot of stuffing to put in, then you don't need to put the tenderloin inside. But if you'd like to, sometimes that's a nice way of placing this in the middle. So now you're going to push the roll down to this side. Make sure the parchment paper is clear of any of your stuffing. And you're going to do the same process. You're rolling it tight. And see how nice? This keeps it nice and even. And you're just going to twist it like a Christmas cracker on either side. The next important product is to place this roll now in your cooking bag. So with the seam side down to start, slide in your roll into the bag. It's important to really do a nice seal on the end. So you fold it over 2 or 3 times. And then to place it in the oven, you want to flip it over so the seam side is up. And it's important to put another piece of parchment paper on the bottom. And we're going to place that in a 375-degree oven for approximately 30 minutes. It's been about 30 minutes, so our turkey roll should be ready. You have to be careful because the pan will be hot and the bag will be hot to the touch. You can try to pick it up in the corner, but you have an oven mitt handy as well. So place this on your cutting board, and again, be very careful opening up the end because it's going to be very hot. And we're going to now unwind the roll in the parchment paper. You see the steam coming off. Just going to flip that so I don't burn myself. You just slide it right off. But you can see how lovely it is with the stuffing in between. It's nice and moist on the outside because it's been double wrapped both in the roll paper and in the cooking bags. So again, slice it very gently, especially when it's hot. But you can see the pretty swirl that it's created in there with all the wonderful sauteed vegetables and pine nuts. What's nice about this too, you can serve your favorite sauce. It could be cranberry, perhaps a red wine jelly. There's numerous accompaniments that could go with this. Once you're finished slicing, you're ready to plate with your sides. And what's important is that you try to create a little bit of a masterpiece. These little circles have given you an opportunity to do a beautiful individual plate for each guest. Or alternatively, if you're serving family style, you could have a beautiful platter and present them in rows and just be able to stack them like this. For this side dish, we're going to be using Culinary Parchment baking cups. They come in 3 sizes. For this particular dish, we're going to be using the large ones. To prepare this dish, you need to slice your potatoes very thin. You can do this with your knife, but it's a little bit difficult and a little bit hard with your hands. I would suggest using a mandolin. This is very handy. You just apply the pressure and you'll be able to get wonderful slices time and time again. When you get down to the very end, it's important to use your glider to hook your potato on there so you don't hurt your fingers. Again, this part can be done ahead of time. You could place some water in the bowl and the potatoes can sit till you're ready to assemble. And the assembly is quite simple. So you have approximately 1 pound of potatoes. You're going to put in some fresh thyme. Alternatively, if you like rosemary, that could work as well. So you're just going to sprinkle that in. You have approximately 2 small diced shallots. Now shallots are a lot sweeter than onions. You could use onions if you didn't have shallots, but I certainly prefer these in this recipe. Then you've got some cold butter cut into small cubes. I'm going to place that in with the potatoes. Get that all out. A little flour. This will help thicken the cream. We're only using 5% cream today, just to cut back on a few calories. Alternatively though, you could use whipping cream as a substitution. And at that point, you don't need the flour to thicken it up. This is one of these recipes where you are going to get your hands dirty because it's important that all the ingredients are mixed very well. This is some wonderful aged Gruyere. You need to finely grate this. You see how thin and feathery that is? Because again, the important part about this recipe is getting all of the ingredients in between all of the slices of potato. Cream. Need to put a little salt and pepper in as well. Don't need too much salt because you've got cheese, the Gruyere, and we're going to be putting grated Parmesan on top. So this is where you get to have some fun. You really have to coat it, work it all in. It's sort of like making a crumble for the top of an apple crisp. You've got to really coat it and make sure all of the potatoes have got everything inside them. This can be a little bit tricky. That's why it's important that you make these slices not too large, because if you had large potatoes, they're not going to fit into these baking cups. So make sure you've got some butter in between the layers and you pack them really well. What's interesting with this is that they really do reduce in size quite a bit. You'll be surprised. And the way that these are going to cook today is in 2 stages. We're first going to seal them with some little circles that I've made out of Culinary Parchment paper. You're going to put your Parmesan cheese on first though. Like so. And then this will just help seal it for the first stage of cooking. After that, we're going to take these off and let the top brown with the cheese on top. So those will just sit there like so and bake in a 375-degree oven for about 30 minutes. And then we're going to take the tops off and keep those in the oven for about another 10 to 15 minutes till they're golden brown. Now we're ready to put the sweet potato cups in the oven at approximately 350 for 30 minutes. Make sure you press down on your tops to ensure that the lids stay nice and cozy on top of your potatoes, because that's what's going to help cook it in the first stage before we take them off to brown it in stage 2. So about 30 minutes again at 350. Now we're going to plate our turkey roll that we sliced. I've put a little homemade cranberry sauce just as a nice little decor and enhancement to the turkey. You could create a red wine jelly or whatever you desire. I always like to put at least 3 or 5 slices when I'm doing a presentation. I just think the odd number has a much nicer presentation. This would be a nice portion. If you had someone that you wanted to have a little more, I would have 5. And what you could do is actually stack the potato cups, making it just twice as deep. But this makes a beautiful restaurant-style presentation for your holiday meals.